Greetings. Really quick video here. You see, this morning I was looking at this Facebook thread, which you see on your screen. It's from the Jews versus Hebrew Israelites Let's Debate forum on Facebook. And it was posted by the administrator of that forum, Jacob Israel. And at the time of making this video, the thread has over 200 comments. And so predictably, it winds up covering a bunch of different topics. And in the midst of those various topics, there was some discussion on Eran ElHaik and his approach to Ashkenazi genetics. And the administrator of that forum, who's also the author of that thread, touched on something which has been covered in other videos, which I'll post in the video description here. And namely, that's that there is a certain irony in folks who are sort of popularly called BHI, perhaps it's better to say African American Hebrew Israelites, who try to use Eran ElHaik's approach to polemicize against Ashkenazim, because even if Ashkenazim fail to meet ElHaik's standard, it still remains the case that Ashkenazim typically fare better on ElHaik's platform than African Americans typically do. Now, the gentleman with whom Jacob Israel was corresponding was somewhat skeptical, so he apparently reached out to ElHaik via email, and he shared part of the correspondence that he had with ElHaik. And I think it's interesting, so I'd like to show what he shared now and, just share a quick thought. So in the one reply from ElHaik that he received, the screenshot that he shared, he doesn't show the whole correspondence, but he did at least show this much. And this reply from ElHaik reads as follows, quote, "There are two different distance matrices. The 39% and 15% figures use all the gene pools to calculate the distances between populations. If Ashkenazi Jews were from Israel, they would have 100% of the Israelite component, which they don't. The high similarity is because of other components. Ashkenazi Jews are more similar to ancient populations from around Turkey than to any populations from the Levant," end quote. Now, the first thing that I want to say here is that this is an example of why starting definitions are so important. Whether or not a bit of apparent evidence supports the idea of a population or an individual meeting a given definition of Israelite depends on that definition of Israelite. I hope that's clear. But nonetheless, let's summarize ElHaik's basic argument this way. Premise 1, if Ashkenazim are from Israel, then they should score 100% Israelite on ElHaik's platform. Premise 2, Ashkenazim do not score 100% Israelite on ElHaik's platform. Therefore, Ashkenazim are not from Israel, or to put differently, they're not Israelites, right? Now, the logical structure of ElHaik's argument is as follows. This is the basic logical structure behind that. If X, right, and X is being used here as a variable, but premise 1, if X is from Israel, then X should score 100% Israelite on ElHaik's platform. Premise 2, X does not score 100% Israelite on ElHaik's platform. Conclusion, therefore, X is not from Israel. That's the basic structure of his argument, right? Now, if this is the rule we're going to go by, then I'm confident that a great many African-American Hebrew Israelites are likewise going to come up, quote-unquote, non-Israelite by that measure. If we simply instantiate individuals who have taken tests on ElHaik's platform, such as Will Brown or Kelly Richardson or Benayah Israel, if we instantiate their name in place of X in this argument, you'll reach the conclusion that none of them are Israelite, according to ElHaik's standard, right? If, we could put the same argument. If Kelly Richardson is from Israel, then he should score 100% Israelite on ElHaik's platform. Or if Benayah Israel or Will Brown is from Israel, then they should score 100% Israelite on ElHaik's platform. And we all know that they did not score 100% Israelite. We've seen Will Brown's results, and we've at least heard allusions to Kelly's results, right? And I think that would apply across the spectrum. And at this point, the question becomes, or at least a question that we should raise, is who today would score 100% on ElHaik's platform? Perhaps there's some irony in the fact that even many of the samples in ElHaik's tribal kits would not score 100% on his platform, right? Or they don't score 100% on his platform, which would mean that samples being presented by ElHaik's platform as part of Israelite tribes would be considered non-Israelite by this standard, right? And one would think that, it might even be the case that King David probably wouldn't get 100% on ElHaik's platform. One has to wonder, although I guess there's a question about what is the samples serving as the standard, the Israelite standard, right? But whatever the case, the argument, ElHaik's argument is deductively valid, but some might want to question the argument's soundness, mainly because they would want to dispute whether that first premise is actually true. And that again would take us back to the question of definitions. What is the definition of Israelite we're working with? On just about any definition I can think of, except for ElHaik's definition, of course, any other definition of Israelite can make room for Israelites who don't score 100% on ElHaik's platform, right? That's true of a patrilineal definition of Israelite. Of course, it's true of a multilineal definition of Israelite, a halachic definition of Israelite, and even, the sort of three-generation definition of Israelite that's floating around now, which I've covered in a previous video. But whatever the case, on a closing note, it is worth pointing out that this also did nothing for the essential point that the forum administrator, Jacob Israel, was attempting to allude to, and it's this. If ElHaik's platform and methodology is to be the standard, then Ashkenazim still fare far better than African Americans on that measure, according to that standard. African American Hebrew Israelites who, not all, but those who polemicize against Ashkenazim, some of them might want to say, well, ElHaik still doesn't think Ashkenazim are Israelites. But the point would still stand. Even if Ashkenazim fail to meet ElHaik's standard, they typically fare better than African Americans do. Or put differently, African Americans typically fare far worse than Ashkenazim do, according to ElHaik's standards. In short, let's try to, this is what I would say. I'd say that this video is a call, once again, to try to have a consistent standard. If ElHaik's platform and approach disqualifies most, if not all, Ashkenazim, fine, that's fine with me. But have the intellectual honesty to admit that the same standard likewise disqualifies most, if not all, of the West African diaspora in the Americas. And conversely, if you don't want the West African diaspora to be held to ElHaik's standard, then why should Ashkenazim be held to that standard? And on that note, I'll close this video here. As always, I welcome any comments, questions, or criticisms. I don't censor anyone here, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section, whether positive or negative, and God bless.